Hello, my name is Grace Winura, and welcome to the channel Horse Pro, where I endeavor to empower amateur horse enthusiasts and support budding professionals. Today, I'm at the Lieutenant Governor General's Cup qualifier for the Royal this year, and I was fortunate enough to run into Louise Masek, who owns a stallion that has participated in many line events. And I felt it was very opportune to speak to Louise today, who is a dedicated breeder, but an amateur. She has a full-time job, but has a passion for breeding quality horses and is fortunate enough to have an approved stallion. So Louise, what I'd like to ask you today is, first of all, what are your qualifications in terms of being a breeder, or what's your history in becoming a horse breeder?
Well, I started as a rider and a trainer, and originally I would always specialize in young horses, and I would get a lot of young horses from breeders. So it didn't make me a household name in terms of the larger Grand Prix and larger classes, but it gave me a tremendous background in terms of the type of young horse and the type of system that works in terms of bringing them along. And it gave me a good background as to what I liked in a young horse and what I did not like in a young horse.
Now, how long have you been breeding?
6 years now.
And I think it's really important to point out that you work full-time, and yet you endeavor to spend a lot of time and money in your breeding aspirations.
I do.
Now, how many foals have you bred?
I've bred a total of 8 foals now over the last 6 years.
And
Not a lot.
And how many mares do you have?
3 active at any point in time.
And now we all talk about, and I know we're going to talk about stallions and your stallion and what it takes to qualify, but I think we can't forget how important are the mares, how important are the dams, and as a breeder owning a mare, how important is it for you to be very selective?
Incredibly important. The mare, my opinion, the mare contributes at least 60% to the equation. So I always look for a performance record. I look for, if I'm breeding for jumpers, I look for a good pedigree, a strong pedigree that has proven jumpers. If it's a dressage horse, again, proven dressage horses. Sires that throw correct horses will throw even better horses with a good dam. So I started with two dams that they themselves competed at a high level.
And were they your own horses that had competed, or did you have to go out and purchase them or find them, or were there mares that you had retired from your own competition?
One was a mare that I retired from my own competition, and one I acquired through Key & White actually, and she jumped internationally at the meter 50, meter 60 level globally.
So obviously tremendous athletic ability.
Tremendous.
On those mares.
Yep.
And now we're going to talk about BEAU BALOU, your pride and joy,
Yep.
winner, taking the Canadian scene by storm. Now, I'd like to ask you, when he was born,
Yep.
did you say to yourself, hot damn, I've got a fine horse on my hand? Did you know at that point he was going to stay as a stallion, or what was your feeling when he was foaled out?
So when he was foaled out, I was excited because he was solid, very correct, good bloodlines, the birth went well, everything, he ticked all the boxes that a foal needs to tick. But all the way along, even now, he's 4 years old, he still has boxes that in my mind he has to tick in order to remain a stallion, and so far he has.
Now, what are his qualifications? What did he do last year that has given him approval?
So last year he went through the Canadian Warm Blood performance testing, not just, he went through the licensing, which is free jumping and on the line and evaluating conformation and movement and free jumping, and then after that there's a performance test component, which is a 3-day test under saddle where they're expected to do dressage, jumping, and most importantly perform under a guest rider. And the marks that the guest rider gives them in terms of rideability, scope, performance, ability to jump, those marks are weighted very heavily in the performance test.
And now, how much time and energy and money did it take, not to this date, but to the end of his 3-year-old year, to perform all those tests, to have won what he's won, How much energy and time, and a rough estimate of how much cost did it take him to get there?
So as a 3-year-old, I wanted to make sure he not only did the licensing and the performance part for the registries, but also started to build a bit of a show record, because I think that's important too. It's more important than just having a piece of paper behind your name that says, hey, I'm registered, or I'm a Hanoverian, or I'm a Canadian warm blood, or whatever the case may be. So we put some under saddle schooling on him, well enough that he finished second in the Lieutenant Governor's Cup at the Royal last year. We jumped him maybe over an X, not a lot, because I don't believe in pushing young horses a lot. But I also always had a good program and good riders on him as well. So when you factor in training costs, showing costs, shipping, just general maintenance on him, I think in his 3-year-old year, I'd say probably 15,000 or so was spent, and I did a lot of it myself. I think if I had to pay a lot of pros to do it, it would have been double that.
But you had the riding background and
Correct.
you have a horseman's background.
Correct.
Now, from that point, coming forward, and now that you have other riders on him, you are going to continue to promote him as a stallion, so you're going to prove a show record. Is that a scary endeavor? Are you looking at that and saying, wow, for all these finances, I hope this horse works out still?
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
Yeah. And what are you going to have him do next year, or this coming 2020 season?
So the plan for 2020, this past year he did a little bit of baby green, he was reserve champion in one of the OHJA hunter development divisions, which I'm really excited that the OHJA is doing, and I want to see more of that for the young horses. We have a gap in Canada where it's very difficult and expensive to promote the young horses. Unlike in Europe. So we do our best. We do a lot of off-property schooling as well. But anyways,
So
next
you haven't
year,
been idle. You have kept him in training,
Totally.
and you have kept him working the whole time to prepare him.
Totally.
Okay.
And in 3 weeks he goes down to the US for probably the biggest test of his life, and it's the North American Stallion Performance Test, which is run completely by Europeans according to European standards. And if he passes that performance test, he'll have approval for breeding for Hanoverian, Oldenburg, and Westphalen registries. He'll have licensing actually for that, and then he has to go back next year for approval.
And how important do you think it is as a breeder to continue to prove his value as a potential breeding stallion? How important is that to you to do all of this? I mean, it takes time and money, so why are you doing it all?
It's a journey. It's a bit of, it's not entirely a business decision, although part of it has to be. Why am I doing it?
I mean, in terms of, do you feel, since he's already won quite a lot, you could just sit and rest on your laurels and advertise him as a stallion. So what is it that you find needs to continue? What is the need to continue? Why make him go out there and potentially fail at something? Like, what is it as a breeder that makes you kind of push him a bit?
It's scary. I would like eventually to see him in the derbies.
Right.
I would like to see him where he may try some young horse jumper development classes next year. The plan on the hunter side is to do the pre-green division, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Now, as a stallion owner, if next year he shows, and let's say you start to see his first foals on the ground, and you don't like what's being produced, would you feel an obligation to geld him at that point and make him a tremendous gelding?
Yes,
You would?
yeah.
You
I've
would.
always maintained that a good stallion makes a great gelding. And if anyone would have told me that I'd be owning and promoting a stallion at this point, I would have laughed at them. So in my opinion, it takes a lot. He had to check a lot of boxes and has to continue to check a lot of boxes to remain a stallion.
And do you think in today's day and age, this is a bit of a hot subject, do many people, because of their desire to have a stallion, simply not geld because they feel an intrinsic value to having a stallion?
I think until you get into it and until you understand every step that's involved, It sounds sexy to have a stallion. I have a stallion, and it sounds easy to have a stallion.
Now everybody thinks when you have a stallion, it's got a pretty face, it trots well, suddenly magically they're going to get approved. What does it take? What did you have to do in order to try to get this horse approved and to get him approved?
They need 4 white socks too.
That always helps, right? Little white shin.
So all that kidding aside, a lot of people think that that's all it
Right.
takes. They obviously have to be correct, they have to be athletic, they have to have a good mind, because the average person, I do not have an army of staff that are specialized in handling stallions. You have to have the facilities, so fences that keep stallions in their paddocks, people that can handle stallions. Shipping is a consideration. They can't ship with mares in the same trailer. Then obviously we've talked about the athletic ability. The pedigree has to be there, because stallions are competing with Europe all the time, and the pedigrees in Europe are 10 times stronger than what we have here. And then there are technicalities, like when they go through the approvals, there's a veterinary portion to it, and so they have to be, they don't have to be, but they have to be VA tested, and preferably negative. It makes for breeding easier. They have to be subjected to a number of x-rays as part of the veterinary inspection. So BEAU BALOU just had 28 x-rays done to ensure that there's no OCD that can be passed on, navicular, anything that's a heritable trait. They have to be very correct in terms of their conformation. So there's a ton. WFFS is warm blood fragile foal syndrome, is becoming or has been a hot topic for the last year or so, and they have to preferably not be a carrier for that. It just makes it easier for mare owners. So there were a number of boxes that they have to go through, and you have to be willing to commit to that time-wise and financially. I mean, taking 28 x-rays and going through a full vet check is not an expensive either.
And being prepared to see negatives on those x-rays and possibly coming to a decision about
maybe he gets gelded. That's right. That's right.
So you are opening a can of worms with that one. I have one last question for you. As an owner of a stallion, when people come to you for breeding, are you selective about the mares that he breeds to?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, because it would be very easy to say he can breed to anybody, but because he's not proven through his offspring yet, and because the registries are looking at the offspring, I have to be selective in terms of what will represent him in future generations.
That's what people may not realize.
Exactly.
It's not
and
just
the quality
about
of the
getting
mare.
your qualification. It's about future progeny.
Correct.
In extending that stallion's life as a producing stallion.
Correct.
And now I have one other question. If people would like to breed to BEAU BALOU, I feel that as a young and up-and-coming stallion, you've selected people to ride him and show him next year. Where will he be shown? I know you're going to the States in a few weeks, but if people wanted to see him perform, where would they find him?
So we will focus on the A circuit in Ontario. There's a possibility that he'll go to Florida, but not till March timeframe. So early, pre the Canadian season starting, and probably start in the Hunter Ring, and then we'll look at the 5-year-old jumpers.
And if you had a word of advice to another person out there who's trying to breed a quality horse, doing it from an amateur status in that they have a full-time job, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
I would be very selective about the mare that's being bred, and very selective about getting a good veterinarian to monitor the mare and follow the mare, and a vet who's specializing in repro work would be ideal. And that part I haven't even touched on the stallion. Those are boxes that have to be ticked as well. The quality of the semen, his ability to collect, his ability to manage both collections and showing and competing and keeping his mind sane, and so there's a lot.
So see today, folks, I think I've really touched on a few topics with Louise, and we could obviously get into this on many more forums, but I think it's of value to see one breeder's journey who ended up having a champion stallion through accidentally being able to keep him as a stallion. But for anybody who would like to breed to BEAU BALOU or see more about him, he has his own Facebook page. I will put all the information in the description below. And I will also put Louise's contact info for anybody who would like to inquire, perhaps about a few questions about being an amateur breeder, having a stallion, breeding to BEAU BALOU. And I'd like you to press the subscribe button in order to become a member of the station to receive future videos, and hit the like icon, because Louise and I, we did such a good job today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.